You guys need to be a little more discerning about what you read upvote on here. Earlier today a post was made by a user who also posted the same wall of text on lost generation, late stage capitalism, etc. While first few lines seem sympathetic, there's a sudden curveball thrown in that most people seem to gloss over. Specifically, the post contained a line referencing Europe being invaded. Anyone who's paid any attention to fascist rhetoric over the past few years should have immediately recognized this as great replacement anti-immigrant propaganda. Despite this, the post received quite a bit of engagement and very few people seem to have recognized this for what it was. I feel the need to point this out because this is exactly how fascism ingratiates itself into communities. Many people here feel disenfranchised and hopeless. And while that can be the catalyst that motivates people towards action against capitalism and labor exploitation, it can just as easily be used to radicalize younger users who are just entering the workforce and are susceptible to bad actors and bad ideas. This is honestly not the first time I've noticed stuff like this on this sub. I've noticed similar things going on in late-stage capitalism, a boring dystopia, lost generation, etc. And it's very troubling. Fascism will disguise itself as socialism. But keep in mind that when it talks about prosperity, it means only prosperity for the chosen. When you notice something like that, please hit the report button so action can be taken. It is sad, but a lot of people believe this rhetoric. They are convinced that the reason they have low wages and terrible conditions are other poor people. The mega corporations can't be to blame. In fact, things are so bad for some industries that they need that sweet US corporate welfare money. Anyone who's paid any attention to fascist rhetoric over the past few years should have immediately recognized this as great replacement anti-immigrant propaganda. Gotta admit, I liked the fascists better when they wore skinhead gear and were dumb as rocks. Made it far easier to spot them. Was this the "Are we ever going to have a prosperous decade?" post? If so, I saw when the OP first tried to get traction with it on our Futurology. They got absolutely dragged for acting like there had ever been some magically prosperous decade, without any issues or conflict. Deleted their post, and clearly tried again with a different crowd. Only people that do that are the ones trying to drive a specific narrative. Super obvious that poster was trying to stir up sympathetic minds to convert into MAGA-type isolationists. Lost Generation in particular has lots of relatively subtle Nazi shit in it. Really weird sub. Ended up dropping it. The vibe is all over the place. Most people are completely ignorant of fascist dog whistles. And many times, when you try to explain them, they won't believe you and will make excuses or tell you it means something else. Thank you for pointing this out. History will keep repeating itself unless we choose to learn from it and remain vigilant about how certain things can creep back in. Remember, your neighbor is not your enemy. AITA reposts karma farming around these parts, partner. Thank you for pointing it out. I haven't noticed it yet, but I absolutely believe you and appreciate the warning. Fascism has no place here. Got similar vibes from the Lost Generation subreddit recently, where a rant turned into a message about not voting, you shouldn't vote, etc. Just how the fascists would want things to be. Yeah, been seeing a lot of suspicious posts pop up all over the place of late. It ain't good. Thank you, Op. Some of the comments here also help to highlight what you just said too. Stay on your toes. Everyone's got that shroud of anonymity on the internet, and fascists are known to lie to get you on their side. Good call out. I've sometimes wondered if any of the more desperate posts might be astroturfed to Drum up anger more than tell the real story. Good call out. Fascists can get fucked. This is important. Thanks for the reminder. I noticed that line, and was wondering, as a guy who lives in Europe, what invasion I missed out on. Thank you for explaining, and fuck xenophobic neo-fascists. Every time I see someone talking about diversity high or negatively, I suspect, good I missed this post, or I would rage. Off topic, I never understood the invasion thing, but I'm in the US, so it's mostly broke and scared people walking overland trying to get a new life. A life where their family eats most often, but also a life away from being killed by gangs is one that comes up. Well said. Thank you for being this to light. It is much easier to fall into fascism than people think. It's terrifying, to be honest. Maybe some of the Redditors actually agreed. You are making us do some work before the response? There's also a ton of tanky and pro-imperialism content under the guise of pro-labor rhetoric here. I make sure to downvote. I think some people really overestimate the impact Reddit has. Majority of people have never heard of it, or understand it. Thank you for pointing this out. I've been noticing the same thing. I think people don't realize how easily insidious ideas can creep into the generally accepted zeitgeist. Read the post all the way to not be tricked by fascist and evil people. I won't lie. I sometimes auto-upvote posts after reading a couple of lines. Agree with sentiment. But TLDR, grim to know that kinda stuff is working its way in here though. Never again you hate my upvote. Believe it or not, some of us are capable of recognizing nuance. The problem with fascism is that they get the problem right but completely misdiagnose the cause. Instead of demonizing these proto-fascists, I'd rather engage them and try to convince them that the scapegoats they've been taught to blame are just that. Call me naive, but I think most of them are reachable with nothing more than better information. The problem is ignorance, not malice. Thank you for calling it out. I know fash love to try to post sneaky fascistic rhetoric in order to trick people into advocating for their tyrannical views and inhuman goals. Thank you for pointing this out. Capitalism at its finest. I work for a company and the owner lives in a modest home. Yes, he will be fine in retirement, but doesn't believe he has to be a millionaire on the backs of his workers. That is the problem in the corporate and working world, as many owners believe you are slaves and to get rich from your labor instead of sharing the revenue with the people that do it. Do you think Warren Buffett employees are well off? No, but he is a billionaire. I applaud him for his philanthropy, but much of those billions could have been given to his employees. If people in the West are racist or xenophobic, they should be taught why they are being invaded. In most cases it was the exploitation, wars, genocide, and general meddling that their governments did and that they consent to. He was talking about Russia invading Ukraine in 2014. Not immigrants. Careful to not assume the worst of everyone. I am working on this myself. Agreed. Are you promoting open borders policy globally? Counterpoint. There exists some ideologies which are incompatible with Western civilization. This is objective reality and has nothing whatsoever to do with fascism or any other ism one might be inclined to bandy about, nor is it anti-immigrant. Unfortunately, as the millennia of human existence has shown us, we cannot all just get along. Lost Generation is a pro-China tanky sub. Just FYI, they would probably be all about that rhetoric. They banned me. Wouldn't say why, but I think it was because I said something about Uyghur Muslims. Anyway, be careful out there. If only there was a button you could use to alert the mods of fascism. and a comment section to leave some snark.